started. Get your coffees while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
There's no business like show business. Are we not entertained? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. Stand by to roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
It's showtime! The Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet. This is It's Showtime, the Craig L. Hayes Show. I am Craig L. Hayes. Glad to have you all here, and we're continuing on interviewing people and talking to them about their careers in show business. But before that, I have to run a little disclaimer and about being here, and I'll tell you why in just a second.
The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts, ownership, or management. And now, on with the show.
Okay, with that out of the way, we can talk about being here at the Westgate Resort Las Vegas in the International Showroom in Elvis Presley's dressing room. That's where we record this show, and it's a great honor to do this and privilege, and I want to thank Cammie Christensen, the president of the hotel, for her letting me do this podcast here in an iconic hotel setting, along with Dawn Rawl. She is the vice president of marketing and entertainment, and John Peer. He's the entertainment coordinator and, technical director, and he wears several different hats around this hotel. Thank you guys for letting me continue doing this thing and talk about show business and keep the history alive, especially in this hotel, which is so amazing and iconic, and so glad to be doing it still here in this town, and we're going to continue on. I have a guy today that I've known for about 20 years, maybe a little bit more, maybe 22, 23, something like that, but at least 20 years. I was trying to figure back. And he is a audio engineer extraordinaire, and I am so glad to have him here today. His name is Nick Sodano. Nick, welcome. Good seeing you again.
Nice to be here. Very nice to be here.
Good. Can you hear yourself okay over there?
I can. Everything's good.
All right. That's the important stuff. You hear yourself talking or hear me talking. I don't know what's anything better than that. But anywho, we wanted to talk about entertainment. You've been in show business quite a while, but first, before we get to the show business side, I'd like to have you tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, and how you eventually got into showbiz.
Well, born in Englewood, New Jersey, in the same hospital my father was born in, believe it or not. I think his father was born on a kitchen table somewhere a few miles away. But got into music very, very early. At age 7, I was taught the saxophone. And my cousin, a fellow named Joseph Muley, was the music teacher in the school system. And he got me in a little early, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he gave me a really good musical background. Eventually wound up becoming, my sisters were also very musical. We were given music throughout our whole childhoods, and so there was a piano in the house, learned to play that. I wound up picking up a guitar and then gravitating towards the bass guitar. And I was going to be a professional musician, a rock star.
Why not?
Well, it was a nice, it was a lofty idea. Always was enamored with the technical end of things like that. When I started getting into bands as a teenager, I was always very, very interested in the technical aspect of putting on these shows, as well as being the musician. And eventually it just started paying better.
Yeah.
But did my first, I started working with regional sound companies in New Jersey back in the late 70s, early 80s. That's when I was performing with these bands. And back then, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, there was a club circuit. But basically, you would walk in and there was nothing. There was just a stage and some pipes that you can hang lights off of. So the bands played, they would bring in a sound company, a lighting company, and then their own backline. And then the sound company that we used to work with, they eventually started hiring me as as well. The joke is as a mixer, but I was mixing paint and painting speakers black. I wasn't. That's how it started. And then loading trucks, wiring things, and we were it was a guy named Tommy Matthews, RTM Audio, and Tommy's still a good bud. Basically taught me a lot about logistics and a lot about audio and how to really put on a show and get it in and out quick. He was a genius in that regard. One day, we were the company that had enough gear to do the national acts at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, New Jersey. It was a famous club. A lot of your listeners probably know the Pony. It's where like Southside Johnny and Bruce Springsteen and even Bon Jovi came up. It was a rite of passage. Cool. That place right on the beach in Asbury Park. And one day the monitor guy didn't show up. He got sick and he couldn't get out of bed. So it was me and Tommy, and Tommy's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, Tommy, give me a shot. I know I can do this, And back then it was a little Yamaha 2408 mixer, with a bunch of knobs. And he says, okay, if the bass player wants more kick drum, which knob do you turn? And I'm like, okay, this one. He goes, you're right. He goes, you see that guy over there? That's Greg Allman. Make him happy. And he walked away. That was my first night mixing monitors, and that was 1981. I want to say like August or something like that in 81. So I've been at this for a bit.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. The next night was Crown Heights, Brooklyn. It was a reggae show, and by the end of that night, by the end of that weekend, I was a seasoned monitor guy. They threw everything at me, between Allman and the Rastas. That was quite the weekend. And that's how I got started actually doing audio professionally. And it's gone from there. I've always tried to keep music going at the same time, but that eventually it just started paying better, to be an audio engineer. And I gave myself to, everybody says, well, I'm going to be a rock star, so that was the thing. So I gave myself till I was 30 years old to be a rock star. I wanted to move to Los Angeles. When I got to L.A., I started handing out resumes as a sound company guy, as an audio engineer, while I was going on auditions and trying to get in. But I realized at that point, I was like, I already missed the boat, and I was this New Yorker in L.A. trying to get in there, and I'd already missed it. And a fella named Andy Martin, ATM Audio was his company, the ATM Group. He hired me to be his rental manager. Because he had a side project, ATM Flyware, which was a series of trusses and connecting bars and things like that would mount to the speakers of the day, which are the Meyer UPAs, Apogee, AE5s, all these kind of speakers. And he came up with a truss system that you can that would live on the box, and then you could connect them and then send them up on a motor, and it made rigid arrays out of things. But he got so busy with that he needed somebody to actually run his sound company, and that's paid me a pretty penny. And I said, you know what, I'm a sound guy. That's when it changed, and I really haven't played professionally since. Although if I'm mixing a record and it needs a part, I'll play on it, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Still dabble with it here and there.
Oh yeah, well
That's awesome.
I could still play. I mean, you never forget. No. But once again, that goes back to Joseph Muley was my cousin and my first music teacher, who was really really good at it. He was he's quite the educator. I grew up in a small town called Fairview, New Jersey, and Cliffside Park, New Jersey was a bigger place. Where we went to high school, because Fairview was too small to have its own high school, so they paid Cliffside Park for the 100 kids or so that came from Fairview, to go there. And the one thing that I noticed right away was all the Fairview kids, when we got to band, in the band room, were the first chairs. And that wasn't because they were so much more talented. It was because of these. It was because of Joseph Millet. He was the teacher. He was a really good teacher. So all those kids, all the Fairview kids wound up for, I could see it now. It was first chair flute, first chair clarinet, they were all from Fairview.
Wow.
Because they had Joe as their teacher. It's not because they were any more talented than the other kids, but they got a good education.
Got that little extra attention and a little more detail and
Well, it was. I don't want he was a really good teacher, but there was also the fact that I guess too that it was a smaller place and there was a little he could give a little extra attention here and there.
That's good.
So and basically that's how I got started. And by the time I guess this was 1989 when I moved to L.A. and that's when it all changed, and I became like really got into audio as a full-time gig, and eventually wound up on the road. A year later, I was on tour with the Little River Band, and as a front of house engineer, and that was my first actual national tour, and they were amazing.
Yeah, they play here.
Yeah, they just did play.
Yeah.
I heard. Yeah, back in the day, we were. We had the original lineup, almost the original lineup, with the original singer Glenn Sharrock and the drummer Derek Pellicci and the bass player Wayne Nelson. He's still there. And I think he's the only surviving member now. Not surviving. Another, not a. That kind of makes it sound like they died.
Yeah,
they're not dead.
He's still.
They're not dead.
He's the only guy still with the original band.
He's still gigging.
He's the only original guy in the band.
Exactly.
That's kind of funny because so many of these bands, they've become tribute bands to themselves, basically, because they've changed so many people out and stuff, and it's like, it's like. Does it ever stop being a tribute band or just officially become when the last guy that's the original member finally retires and then it's, I don't know what it is at that point. So
the thing that cracked me up when I first moved here, I moved here on January 2nd, 2000. 2 days after that Y2K thing that was going to kill us all. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I planes kept flying, and I got here.
Good to see you survived it. That's good.
Oh, yeah. As most of the world did. And when I got here, I noticed that there were a bunch of, like, the old-time, like, doo-wop bands, like Coasters and Floaters and this and that, all these guys. There were multiple bands playing under the same name, but because like the one, the lead singer, he had, he hired his nephews and his cousins, and they had their own, and then there was the other guys' Floaters, where the other guys' Coasters, and there could be the same band actually playing in like 3 or 4 different casinos with different lineups,
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
Yeah, it was kind of funny on that, because I remember it was Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Right.
And then there was Bobby Wade's Imperials. Right. And then there was just the Imperials.
Right. Right. Yeah, it was like such and such, this guy's band, that guy's band. But it's, keeping the name out there.
Kept the name, man.
Kept the name. Everybody needs to make a living.
Whoever owned the name, they got paid 3 times.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I noticed that too when I used to do the lounges, do the sound in the lounges and stuff. It was like, well, which version are we doing of this band?
Right.
Who?
Right.
Because we did the Coasters, we did the Checkmates, the Imperial, we did Freddie Bell and all these guys. It was great stuff, Santa Fe and some really amazing shows.
Oh yeah,
yeah, good times.
Those
good times in those lounges and stuff. And so cool, man. So you got here in 2000.
I got here in 2000.
Oh.
My first gig here in town was to be one of the audio guys over at Mandalay Bay. It was called the Event Center back then, which is now it's Michelob Ultra Arena. But we were doing, HBO and Showtime boxing matches, things like that. And that's where I ran into our buddy Aaron Gordon for the first time because he was working there. Carl Lugas was an acquaintance from back in L.A., Carl was the technical director
Okay.
at the event center, and he used to mix Melissa Manchester. And one of the gigs I did was a company called Nelson Sound back in L.A., and I was their rental manager for a time, and I would bring Carl some, sound systems for Melissa corporate gigs, that kind of thing. And that's how I got to know Carl. So when I moved to town, I didn't know he lived here at the time. I had no idea. And when I moved to town, I moved here to actually open and operate a recording studio, commercial studio. But I needed some income. That wasn't it wasn't the best idea financially.
In 2000, yeah.
Yeah, in 2000, I opened up a studio with 2-inch tape and analog and moving faders and big consoles and all that. Just about the same week Pro Tools Lite came out, so you could have a recording studio for the price of a demo at my place, and we just didn't really time it that great.
Yeah, I owned Sound Masters Las Vegas, recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
My partner still owns it. He still does. He's got the whole Pro Tools. He's got.
Yeah.
We had Tascam 1-inch 16-track, and love that audio, analog audio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
Oh yeah.
Oh, just love it.
Yeah, that's how I learned how to edit with a razor blade.
Yep. Razor edits, man. you see that to people today, and they just look at you, and go, "What?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? You cut your tape? Yeah, you had to cut your tape, man. It's just what it was.
Yeah, the whole cut and paste thing. Yeah, that's how it.
What it was.
That's what it was. You use Scotch tape to tape it together.
And see how sometimes you'd cut that, and it was like an 1/8-inch strip is all you were cutting out of that thing.
Oh yeah.
And, whew,
Yeah, just enough to make a groove.
Yeah.
If it's off, it's off, and you know it, but it doesn't take a lot. No.
yeah, I've been there with you. I know that feeling stuff, man. That is, you're starting to sweat when you're getting ready to cut that last little piece.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just guessing it's be about right.
Right? No, that's a lost art now.
Yeah.
It's a really lost art. But oh yeah, so when I actually came here and needed a job, I was talking to Matt Nelson, who was the guy from Nelson Sound, and he's the guy that owned the company that was providing audio for these Melissa Manchester shows. And he goes, "Why don't you call Carl? He's got a job over there. He runs a Mandalay Bay Arena." I was like, "No kid." I go, "Carl Lucas?" He's like, "Yeah." So I wound up calling him. And he said, "Okay, you got to call this guy, get on the payroll, and blah blah blah, and then come down. I have a boxing match on, on Sunday. Come down on Sunday." And I walked in the door, and Carl looked at me, and he was like, "Oh, thank God it's you. I thought it might have been somebody else." I go, "No, it's me, buddy."
Yeah.
So that was.
How many
really
Nick
funny.
Sodanos do you know, man?
Well, he's like the guy from Nelson Sound, but I guess there was another guy that he didn't like that
Oh,
much.
gotcha,
You know what I mean?
gotcha, okay.
So when he walked in, he goes, "Oh my God, thank God it's you." He's Austrian,
Yeah.
So he had that accent. He was he's one of the sweetest men. I still stay in touch with him. He's back in Austria now. He retired. Yeah.
Retired and done, huh?
Yeah. He retired, and he's in Austria now, enjoying his retirement.
Good for him.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not far away, man. That's right. We share a birthday.
Yeah, you and I, you're exactly to the
Exactly.
date,
Yep.
1 year older than me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I already pulled my retirement. I'm done.
I need to start thinking about Medicare right now.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
I'm a year and a half, so that means that you're half a year out.
When did
so-
that happen? Jeez.
I don't know.
When
It
did
went by
when
pretty
did 64 years go by? It's just crazy.
I don't know. Just a flash,
Right.
Yeah, you come into this like I came in as an apprentice into local 720, and I see these guys and they're all talking about retirement, and I'm like, oh, I'll never get there. Good grief, that's like 40 some years away.
Right. It goes by like a blink of an
It's
eye.
gone.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Everyone says the same thing, and it just goes by fast, and it does. But in our job, it's just go all the time.
Right.
So you burn up the days real quick and stuff. So you started working with Aaron Gordon once in a while.
Well, he was actually the guy mixing these boxing matches at the time, and I just came in as support, wiring things and basically, I mean, Carl showing me the ropes, in the building, because it was a really nice install at the time. With truck dock that you could connect all the cameras and the audio to, and blah blah blah. It was a big patch bay, and it's a cool building. And actually, a few months ago, I just did the install of their new sound system. They just installed a new system in there. And
What's the system?
it's the Meyer Panther rig, 48 of them.
I am not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's the newest. It's their
Pretty new,
newest
huh?
powered box. Yeah, it's the newest powered box, and so I still go in there every now and then. But that was my first gig in town while I was opening my studio. I opened the studio to get off the road, and then I wound up going on the road to pay for it.
Yeah.
Which is,
And then you couldn't do your studio because you're on the road.
Yeah,
so-
because I'm on the
yeah,
road,
it's
and the
that
phone only
vicious
rang when I
cycle.
was the phone only rang when I was gone.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
you know,
I need
at
some
one
studio time. No,
I'm
I'm
like, somebody please rob me, just take it all. It's like,
let me collect the insurance and be done with this.
Yeah,
thing. Jeez.
exactly. You start thinking about that heist, and it's like, yeah, that's a federal rap. I'm not going to jail for this.
Yeah.
I'll just lose all the money that I put into it.
Yeah, recording studios, for anybody that doesn't know, is there are love-hate relationships with your studio.
Right.
You love being there and working on people's projects, but you hate having to, pay for the thing and then have to go out find more work when it doesn't.
And and if you have a recording studio, once you make your large investments, which is like tens of thousands for this and that and the other thing, it's like every time something goes wrong, it's either $100 or $1,000.
Yeah.
It just never seems to be in between.
Yeah, something breaks down. It's like you call up the repair guy, so he can take a look at it. He tracks it down, and that'll be $100 and something.
Right.
You're here 18 seconds.
We had MCI tape decks, MCI 2-inch tape, and JH24s, and there was a guy named Randy Blevins, I believe, in Nashville, who bought every single part for these things, diodes, LEDs, you name it, every single part for these things. I had him on speed dial. Like, Randy, send me, I need 2 of these, and a transistor, 2 of these LEDs. He's like, oh yeah, that'd be $90,000. I'm like, oh, I hate you, but you got to keep the stuff running.
Yeah.
And at that point they were 20 years old. So those decks, but they weren't Maytags. They were like size of washing machines.
Yeah, at the studio, my partner still runs. We still have our 16-track Tascam that we've had. It's still sitting in a rack.
Sure.
Yeah, it's still there. It's just a reminder of
Those things.
the old days.
We had one of the studios I worked in had one of those Tascams, and one thing I remember about it is the transport was just rock solid on those things.
Yes.
Absolutely rock solid.
It was a great deck.
Yeah.
It really was. It doesn't work now, but that's been 30-something years. So.
It did its time. It did its time. But Aaron Gordon wound up being he was the mixer. And at the time, I was the tour manager and engineer for the jazz band, the Rippingtons. And it was getting more and more difficult to operate that gig as the tour manager, and then still, be there to do the audio and all that kind of stuff. So I hired Aaron to come in. I was like, look, I need you to come in, handle the audio, and then when I get there with the band, I'll just spin it up. We weren't carrying production at that time, and whatever the desk they had, and that's what I used. But then Aaron wound up actually helping me out a lot with that, where he would go in and make sure that the audio was going to be good before I got there, that everything was in place. And he and I are still good friends,
He's still back in Philly, right?
Yeah. Well, he lives in South Jersey, like near, and but he's working out of the Philly local now. And that started that was one of my first friends in town here.
Yeah.
Him, and then Lefko, and Lefko actually got me into the union. Dave Lefko.
Okay.
Let's
Let's take a little 5-minute break here, then we'll come back and we'll pick it up right there. We're getting into local 720 and working with some of the very interesting characters we have within this local.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah. So until then, you're listening to It's Showtime, the Craig L. Hayes Show.